On our agenda, we are about to welcome the President of Armenia, who will be and will also be joined by the Deputy Secretary General. Ladies and gentlemen, we now have the honor of hearing an address by Mr. Serzh Sarkissian, President of Armenia. I don't yet see him entering the room.
Monsieur le Président de l'Arménie.
The President of Armenia.
Voilà, je vous laisse vous installer, Monsieur le Président.
I'll just let you settle in, President.
Vous saluer au nom
So
de
I'd like to
l'Assemblée
welcome you on
parlementaire
behalf of the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe. We are delighted to have you here with us, and the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Armenia, who chairs the Committee of Ministers, and of course the Ambassador as well, and the whole team who are with you today. President, I would like to say to you, as I said in my office to you this morning, how happy we are and pleased to welcome you here in this chamber of the Parliamentary Assembly, in this house, which is the House of Democracy, which you are very much part of. And I'd like to say that we very much appreciate the chairmanship of the Committee of Ministers, which you are the incumbent, and you'll be in that chair for another few weeks. And we're very attentive to the message which you have been sending out. Some of my colleagues indeed have written themselves on the list to ask you some questions, so we are all on tenterhooks to hear what you have to say. So once again, welcome to you, President, and without further ado, I give you the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President, Mr. Secretary General, honorable members of the Assembly, ladies and gentlemen. I am glad for this opportunity to address the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe, our organization which represents 800 million Europeans. It is a particular honor and responsibility for my country to hold the chairmanship in the Committee of the Ministers of the Council of Europe for the first time ever. During this 6-month chairmanship, we have aspired to make a contribution to the strengthening of the European value system as a means of confirming that Europe is a family of nations committed to common values more than a geographic toponym. Ladies and gentlemen, a few days ago, Armenia celebrated the 22nd anniversary of her independence. The 22-year-long path of building a free and democratic state has not been easy, with Azerbaijan constantly uttering war threats and imposing a race of arms, and Turkey holding closed the shortest route connecting Armenia with the world for so many years, contrary to all international rules and norms, have forced us to exert a supernatural effort for developing and for building a modern state. Acting in a complex environment that does not compare with the circumstances of any other state, Successive Armenian governments and the Armenian people have remained focused on the pursuit of substantial reforms in all areas of public life in our country. The Declaration of Independence was the realization of a dream held by my people for centuries and generations. Accession to the Council of Europe restored our historic and cultural belonging to the European family of nations. Our society has always clearly aspired to have a state system anchored in European values such as freedom, democracy, and the rule of law. We view our membership in the Council of Europe and our cooperation with other European organizations as an important means of consolidating democracy and carrying out effective reforms in Armenia. The results of our joint efforts are visible and irreversible. Armenia today is a country of free speech and free press. We safeguard the freedom of assembly. Civil society is vibrant and aware of its rights and ways of struggling to uphold these rights. These and numerous other achievements are, in my opinion, essential for our future. Honorable members of the Assembly, Armenia completed 3 major electoral cycles in the last 18 months. As a result of the May 2012 parliamentary election, all the significant political players in Armenia gained seats in the parliament, making the parliament a stronger and more viable political organ. The 2013 presidential election was conducted in a competitive environment. The Yerevan City Council election was held in May. The Council of Europe had observation missions in all 3 elections. The first 2 were observed by the Assembly, while the Yerevan City Council election was observed by the Council of Europe's Congress of Local and Regional Authorities. Delegations were able to observe the election and to produce reports containing relevant recommendations. I value these reports as a candid opinion of partners interested in Armenia's future. In this regard, I would like to mention that we have followed up on the recommendations of the Parliamentary Assembly and other international partners regarding the organization of free and fair elections. They are being rigorously considered and acted upon by a task force created specifically for improving the electoral process. A broad public consultation will be held in the next few days with a focus on the legal amendments proposed under the relevant recommendations with the participation of all stakeholders and the support of the international community. Ladies and gentlemen, we face a number of serious challenges such as unemployment, poverty, and corruption. And our government is implementing comprehensive programs to address them. The rule of law is another important priority. Equality before the law is condition sine qua non for our economic and political advancement. The human being, human dignity, fundamental rights and freedoms are viewed as the ultimate objectives. The state, in turn, is bound by fundamental human and civic rights and freedoms, as they are the directly applicable law. These provisions, as enshrined in our Constitution, predetermine the behavior of individuals and state authorities in an effort to strengthen the rule of law and civil society. I am confident that virtually any democratic constitution enshrines the substance of the rule of law. However, what matters more is its practical implementation so that the authority, limited by law, becomes a rule of life. Especially in young democracies, it requires a consistent and structured effort. It requires an independent judiciary, and it requires impartial administration of justice. In this context, I believe that the conference held this July in the auspices of the Armenian chairmanship in the Council of Europe on the rule of law and the scope of discretion of power generated strong interest as it continued the process initiated by the UK chairmanship. Our country has embarked on a new stage of systemic reforms in these areas. Long-term programs are being implemented. They are all centered around the human being, as well as safeguards of human rights and freedoms, and the creation of an environment of tolerance, pluralism, non-discrimination, justice, and mutual trust in the country. The consolidation of democracy and strengthening respect for human rights are our next priority, as connected directly with the previous one, the rule of law. Notable achievements in this field include a number of major amendments to the judicial code, which improve the transparency and fairness of the procedure for selection of judge candidates. We remain focused on legal aspects of the appointment of judges, with a view to safeguarding the complete independence of judges. The penitentiary institutions are being modernized. A probation service will be created. We have developed and started implementing the Armenia 2012-2016 strategic program of legal and judicial reforms, which I'm sure will produce a judicial and legal system consistent with the standards of a modern democratic legal state. In this context, I attach much importance to the fully fledged implementation of the 2012-14 Armenia Council of Europe Action Plan, which contains a number of important initiatives in this field. We have had success, but we shall not stop here. I have undertaken a process of reforming the Constitution of the Republic of Armenia with a view to further strengthening the constitutional safeguards of the rule of law and respect for human rights and freedoms, as well as achieving an appropriate balance of powers and improving the effectiveness of public administration. We would be grateful if the Council of Europe supported this process, among others, through the Venice Commission. Ladies and gentlemen, the European Union is one of the important partners of Armenia. Wide-scale reforms in the areas of human rights, democracy, and the rule of law make up the core of the Armenia-EU relationship. The Eastern Partnership instrument, created under the EU's Eastern Partnership in cooperation with the Council of Europe, is an important initiative. It covers a variety of activities in the participating states in relation to electoral standards, judicial reform, good governance, corruption, and the fight against cybercrime. There has recently been much talk of the civilizational choice of the countries participating in the Eastern Partnership of the European Union. We have always stated that we are not ready to view this matter in such a dimension. Armenia aims to continue its comprehensive, mutually beneficial partnership with the EU. From the outset of the Eastern Partnership Initiative, and even before, we have stated and continue to state that we aspire to have the closest possible and widest possible relations with the EU and to be close to the EU. This policy shall not be discontinued. As is known, Armenia has a close allied relationship with Russia. Armenia has not built a new relationship at the expense of the relationship with her strategic ally. Just in the same way as we refuse building a relationship with any partner which would be aimed against any other partner. We will continue to match the relationships and interests with our key partners. Honorable members of the Assembly, peaceful resolution of the Nagorno-Karabakh issue under the aegis of the OSCE Minsk Group co-chairs has been and will remain our priority until we achieve comprehensive settlements. We value the efforts of all those who support regional stability. But we also know that we must primarily rely on our own strength in order to contain the opponents in the event of possible negative developments and in order to maintain peace, especially as the leader of our neighboring state continues to make public statements threatening war, declaring Armenians, quote, enemy number one, end of quote, and boasting about disproportionate increases in military spending and the build-up of arms. Nonetheless, I believe that the people of Azerbaijan, or a significant part of them, actually do not share this mindset. Because anyone in Azerbaijan who tries to recall candid memories of the past that was once shared with the Armenian people is publicly admonished, threatened to have an ear cut and expelled from the country. Hence, the actual mood of the people of Azerbaijan is not voiced. Instead, whatever is heard is that which is demanded by the propaganda machine. Hence, the ineffectiveness of any attempt at confidence-building measures. I'm sure that our peoples will have a better future than the one contemplated by some leaders who preach hatred and war. As I have already stated publicly on other occasions, I do not consider the people of Azerbaijan to be the enemy of the Armenian people. We are capable of respectfully resolving our disagreements and peacefully coexisting as neighbors. 2 days ago, my people mourned at the funeral of Serzh Sarkissian, national artist of the Republic of Armenia, one of the most gifted Armenian actors. The master's last public statement was his open letter to the intellectuals of Azerbaijan, which was nothing but an appeal for peace, justice, and reasonableness. Quote, "Are you really going to unleash a war? My dear neighbors, nothing will come out of it but innocent victims. Why? Very simply, Karabakh for you is a territory, but for us, a sacred fatherland." End of quote, wrote the great intellectual in his letter. Indeed, we regularly appeal for sobriety and firmly claim that the zealous incitement of xenophobia the unyielding threats of the use of force and the race of arms will not do any good. Peace and cooperation are the only feasible means of building a prosperous future for the peoples of the region. And this is an axiom that requires no proof. The international experience shows that democratic societies are best placed to resolve conflicts peacefully. In the last 2 decades, democratic institutions have been forged and continuously developed in Nagorno-Karabakh, according to well-known international organizations such as the Freedom House. The level of democracy in Nagorno-Karabakh is noticeably better than that in some of its neighbors. Karabakh has been, is, and will remain a part of Europe. Its society is a part of the European family, European society, regardless of Karabakh's political status. Therefore, I believe that the Council of Europe could, regardless of status, initiate direct contacts with Karabakh in the relevant areas of its functions, especially as the Council of Europe has similar experience in respect of other conflict zones. Dear friends, as Armenians, we have been destined to become advocates of the fight against genocides. Genocide is not only a crime against mankind, a heinous crime against mankind, but a striking manifestation of fascism and intolerance, as well as a grave encroachment upon the right to life. Indeed, people that have survived such tragedies have a distinct mission of preventing their reoccurrence. The best way to prevent atrocious crimes against mankind is to discuss those terrible pages of history and to assess the past in light of universal values. Fighting against the preconditions giving rise to such heinous crimes is, in my opinion, of equal importance. Armenia is taking practical steps to mobilize efforts of the international community for the prevention of genocide crimes, as well as for combating their root causes. For years, Armenia has initiated various resolutions on genocide prevention in different international fora. Time and over, we have helped the UN Human Rights Council to adopt resolutions on the prevention of genocide. The aim of these resolutions is to keep the international community focused on the Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide, as well as to remind the international community of commitments of states in eliminating crimes against humanity. Armenia has declared the fight against intolerance and propaganda inciting discrimination and hatred as priorities for the term of the Armenian chairmanship in the Committee of Ministers. We consider it shameful that such practices still exist in the modern era, and that in some countries they are even encouraged on a state level. We have to be determined to eradicate such practices in any corner of the world. Ladies and gentlemen, our societies are undergoing major transformations and are facing numerous challenges today. Which are our values in the 21st century? Which values are more prevalent today than others? Why do extremist political currents and practices gain momentum? Why is social cohesion weakening? Why did the Council of Europe have to initiate the youth campaign against hate speech online? These and other questions are hard to answer in a few sentences. These practices are reprehensible. In an era of modern information technology, they can spread momentarily among millions of people. Hence, swift and adequate responses are needed. It is our duty to strengthen bridges between nations, our citizens, societies, cultures and religions, so that the future generations inherit a much more peaceful and safer planet. We remain focused on Syria these days. We are deeply concerned about the events happening there, which have been causing the death of innocent civilians. As there is a community of several thousands of Armenians that are an integral part of the Syrian people, Armenia unequivocally welcomes the Russian-American understanding on the peaceful resolution of the conflict in Syria, as well as the UN Security Council resolution that was adopted a few days ago. We all have a duty to unite our efforts for the future. We need especially to engage the young generations in building our future. They are young, courageous, and full of energy. Our societies will have a brighter future if we feed them the right ideas and educate them by true values, which must be enriched by freedom and democracy, and be free from prejudice. As a unique organization, setting and spreading standards of human rights, democracy and the rule of law, the Council of Europe has a crucial mission in this process, and its role in accomplishing our common objectives must be maximized. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you.